So what we're going to do today is we're going to take our good friend here, the Ecto. We're going to take him out on the course, and we're going to run through a couple of the usual obstacles with it laid out just like this. Basically, the stock configuration with the motor that's been in there the whole time, a little belt drive to kind of try to speed up the wheel speed a little bit. Then we're going to bring it back in. We're going to swap out that gearbox for this guy because it'll bolt right up. And what we're going to do is we're going to find out the answer to the question that I only just had mere moments ago, which is, would you trade Overdrive for Dig? And we're going to find out. So what you have here is some freeform stream of consciousness over what basically amounts to Lil Yella the Ecto stock footage. We've seen what it can do. It's relatively capable. Things have gotten a lot better. Those J-Concept hunks on there. I just wanted to give myself a little bit of a mental baseline to give myself an idea of what to expect. I was wondering mostly, how would turning radius be affected losing the what Element calls overdrive but is in fact underdrive, like something like, I think it's 11.83%. Anyway, it's mild. I have the same sort of setup on my TRX4 Sport, and I don't really notice it on that one either. It's not, at least to me, perceptible, that little amount of overdrive, underdrive. I have overdrive on Zoidberg the Capra, and honestly, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I don't know if I'm conscious of that either. So I just wanted to come out and really quickly run some of the usual lines, some of the more broken stuff, some of the smoother stuff, that normal upcoming little side hill section that I always use, because for me, turning radius is as important as anything else when trying to wheel these. And if it has a bad turning radius, it's bad all around. And front wheels spinning faster than the rear wheels should make a rig turn around more quickly, but as we know, Dig will make a rig turn around much more quickly. So this is kind of it's an experiment, and we're gonna see how it goes. Be aware that while I think everyone should absolutely do something like this to some rig at some point, that this fits, but it doesn't really fit. The drive shaft had to be swapped in from something else. There's spacers under the gearbox because it sits so low that the dig linkage and the motor were hitting the chassis. It's obviously designed around a 540 because, yeah, we got that right there. So quick, dirty little Delrin spacer to raise it up enough to clear the servo. Now, yeah, does it dig? Yeah. It absolutely digs. It goes. There's dig. There's no dig. But this brace doesn't fit. The rear drive shaft doesn't fit. Everything's got to be spaced out all over the place. Nonetheless, I'm going to take it out and see how this thing performs with no underdrive, what they call overdrive, but it's really rear underdrive. So this is driving exactly the same, front and rear. And we'll see what that difference in gearing, and we'll see if that's going to affect the turning radius at all. and we'll see if all of this nonsense, which which has to have raised the CG a fair bit with the gearbox being all metal. But only one way to find out, right? Having a lifelong tendency to just throw myself into a project without thought has over time slowly manifested in me the sense to at least halfway go easy on the first attempt at something, which is why the dig servo is just mounted crazy high on a little Delrin standoff to get clearance to get the servo past the motor. If this goes on and becomes a final thing, obviously there'll be more cleanup and more cleanup and more cleanup. But for a proof of concept, for me, it's get it together as quickly and easily as I can with the fewest number of parts. And I have to say, so far, this early on, I've never really been able to perceive underdrive, overdrive, unless it's severe. Like when you throw the shift switch on a VS410 Phoenix and you get 33% front overdrive, it's significant. It's like halfway to dig. Now here, as I had mentioned turning radius before, it's tighter, but I feel like it could be tighter still. And here on the side hill, I could feel at least the weight of that servo up high. Now that's very easily remedied. Those JX low profile servos from Amazon are great, and they're like $16 a piece. So no matter what rig this gearbox finally ends up in, it will have one of those low profile servos on it for sure. Having run through basically the same series of obstacles that I had with it in, let's air quote it, stock configuration, I wanted to get a little feel to see how, if I could feel how the CG had moved. And I don't know. There's definitely something different. It feels different. I mean, aside from the ability to apply dig, which with the aggressive steering angle of the Ecto, that steering angle and dig will really throw the front end around. Right there, there's a dig, and it turns in place. So the dig works remarkably well on the Ecto. I went into this expecting nothing. It was a thought experiment that I thought would kill a couple hours. But then, as I was particularly into this section, this is a difficult transition because off frame at the bottom, it just drops off. It's literally a block wall there. So right in here, it's that perfect pivot. That I couldn't have done that better. Not patting myself on the back, but I mean the way the vehicle maneuvers through those conditions. Side hilling generally seems about the same. So I will, of course, have CGH sheets at the end comparing the most recent spec on Lil Yella, which was from the tire test, to what we have now. And I don't think it's going to be severe. It'll be something, but it won't be a lot of something. When results are positive, we begin, of course, by making a huge mess. The issue was that this is clearly designed for a 540, and this is a 550. So we grab a little bit of aluminum, and we move on to the next step. That should move it back 7 millimeters, so I can drop it down to the regular spot. I turn this drive shaft down about 10 millimeters shorter, so that will clear as well. And we are almost ready to initiate testing round 2. So we're finally cleaned up and got the wiring in a better situation for the next round of testing. I was really happy with the performance of the Dig, and the Amazon cheap Dig gearbox is very smooth, is surprisingly smooth, and the Dig actuates almost as quickly as that in the Phoenix. So let's throw it down on some rocks again and see how it does with a little cleaner of a configuration. I'm sure I didn't mention it before, but it's definitely worth mentioning. If you do purchase one of these gearboxes off of Amazon, the $60 Dig gearbox, sold under many different names, if you get one, the first thing you do is take it apart, because there is not a speck of grease inside of it. It is, I mean, there might be some of the machining agent still on the gears, but that's it. I don't even think the steel shielded bearings have any oil in them. So I oiled the bearings. I put a big thick glob of Lucas in there, and the volume level dropped significantly. It's running the stock Ecto spur again. I took out the belt drive and put the Ecto spur back in because I wanted to do a test of motor rotation. Some of you may or may not know that when you put a belt drive unit in, because a belt acts like an intermediate, the motor spins in the opposite direction. So if you got torque twist, you can just throw in a belt drive and now your motor will spin the opposite direction. Anyhow, I was really impressed with the performance of it, particularly just dropping that servo down about the thickness of a servo or so, maybe 14 millimeters. It was, I could feel the difference. And I don't want to go too deep into this or too far into this because I think it's a bit of an out there project, but this little side-by-side of Dig versus no Dig, this was pretty much, that was pretty much the selling point for me. So as promised, here's the sheet from last time, and here's the updated sheet. It raised the CG not quite a quarter of an inch. I will be replacing that servo with a low profile, which will take off, I think it shaves about 40 grams or so, which I think would account for most of what we saw in gain on CG, and would bring us around here to the close where I would offer my answer to my self-imposed question of, would I trade Overdrive for Dig? Well, I guess so, yeah. Yeah, I guess. Because I think it's going to stay, at least for a little while. And with that, that's that. I should have been more clear at the beginning. Would I trade Overdrive for Dig? Not would you trade Overdrive for Dig? I don't know what people do. Everybody does different stuff. Some people might like it. I mean, you can go get yourself a Phoenix and have Overdrive and Dig, I suppose. Or some other vehicle where you can just throw in Overdrive gears. But here I go a-rambling again. So thanks for watching. Be sure to go leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't. Check out Crawler Canyon on Instagram. I should just make an end card for this so I don't have to do it every time. I feel like a shill. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed. I had a good time making this one. And I hope to have another one out real soon.